Hey, what's up, guys? So the time is finally upon us. The jury has been selected, and by the time you see this video, Alec Baldwin's criminal trial will probably be underway with opening statements. Alec Baldwin, of course, is charged with manslaughter for the death of Halyna Hutchins. She was the cinematographer on a movie called Rust that he was filming in Santa Fe, New Mexico back in October of 2021. So Alec Baldwin was holding a gun that was being used in the film, right? They kept calling it a prop gun, but it ended up firing a bullet. So I guess it was a real gun. I don't know why they kept calling it a prop gun. Anyways, he was holding a real gun with a real bullet in it, and he was pointing it at the camera that Hutchins was sitting behind, and the gun went off somehow, and the bullet went through Hutchins, and it hit the director, Joel Souza, in the shoulder. Hutchins died of the injury, and Souza actually recovered from his injuries. He was released from the hospital, I believe, later that same day, or, he wasn't too badly injured. But, of course, there was a tragic death of Halyna Hutchins. And now all this time later, nearly 3 years later, 3 years later, I can't do math, Baldwin is finally going to trial. This case was, in my humble opinion, kind of a shit show from the beginning, from the evidence gathering initially and all that kind of stuff. So I honestly at first didn't think that Alec Baldwin was even going to get charged. I thought the most responsible person for Halyna's death was the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was convicted of manslaughter and I believe was sentenced to the max of 18 months in jail. She's currently serving a sentence at the Santa Fe County Jail. And Dave Halls, an assistant director, was in charge of safety. He also pleaded guilty to a charge in the case, and he was able to avoid jail time. But in my opinion, I thought Hannah was the one who was the most responsible because she was the armorer. She was one of making sure that no live rounds were on set, that certainly no live rounds got into guns that were being pointed at people, things like that. She was responsible for making sure no one got shot, is what I'm saying. And so she got convicted. I believe she was extremely negligent in her job duties, and that led to someone dying. I think that conviction was just spot on. Baldwin, I mean, yes, the prosecution is going to have to prove that he pointed the gun at Halyna and pulled the trigger. That's going to be hard to prove. He claims that he did not pull the trigger, although weapons experts have examined the gun and said that there's no way it could have fired on its own. So I know the prosecution is going to lean heavily on that, and their biggest obstacle is proving his negligence, and that he willfully knew that what he was doing was wrong and negligent and could lead to someone's death. I think that's going to be hard to prove, and I know other legal experts who have been asked about the case say that it's going to be hard to prove, which is why I didn't think he was going to get charged in the first place. Now, there was a charge initially for manslaughter that got dropped because the prosecution needed more time to investigate some things. So later on, an indictment came. An indictment, of course, is when the case is brought before a grand jury, which is just a jury of 12 regular people. They decide yay or nay a crime may have been committed here. So that's how that's how Alec Baldwin got charged for really the second time. And finally, here we are at the trial. But there was several other missteps along the way too, like the former special prosecutor, Andrea Reeb, who was a state representative. She sent an email to the district attorney, Mary Cartmack Altwies in Santa Fe, saying that you should put a press release about me prosecuting the case because it would raise my political clout or something to that nature. Shout out to the Santa Fe New Mexican who got that scoop. But yeah, so that didn't work out so well. So she had to basically fire her and bring in a new group of special prosecutors. And yeah, the whole time, honestly, it's been very, antagonistic between the two sides, between Baldwin's high-priced New York attorneys and our humble little attorneys here in New Mexico. They didn't seem to like each other. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't want to go that far, but they were certainly going at it, accusing the other side of misconduct and shit like that. So, it's been pretty chaotic between both sides like that. I don't know how long this trial is going to last. I think about a week and a half is what I saw, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't think I don't think he's guilty necessarily. I just think, here's the thing, you just got to prove a lot of things in court. You got to prove a lot of things to a jury. That bar is really high because those 12 people who end up going to the deliberation room have to come to a unanimous decision. All 12 of them have to agree to a guilty count, or there could be a mistrial, and they could charge Baldwin again. I really don't think they would bring him to trial again for something like this. It seems like just way too difficult to prove, especially if they couldn't do it the first time. But I think it's going to be a really high bar to prove it, because they'll have to prove, did he in fact definitively pull the trigger? And I don't know if there's any like definitive proof of that, other than, I mean, the strongest evidence will be a gun expert saying that, yeah, this gun could not have fired without the trigger being pulled. It'll come down to the jury believing that person and believing if that's enough evidence to support a conviction. Some people, some quote legal experts that I've seen in stories I've read throughout the months, seem to suggest that it's going to be hard to prove. By the way, they finished filming the movie in Montana, and Souza, the guy who was also hit by the bullet, he stayed on to direct it. In fact, a lot of the cast and crew stayed on, and I guess they did it to pay tribute to Halyna. That's according to a story I saw in the New York Times a while back. It was a good story, but I don't know, man. That movie just feels cursed. Like someone died. I couldn't believe they finished it. I mean, if they want to kind of do it as a tribute to Halyna, I mean, I guess, but also, I don't know, she died. There were also a lot of lawsuits around this case. Hutchinson's family filed some against Baldwin. Some crew members had filed some for like distress and things like that. The safety issues were a big part of the set, I guess. Union guys had quit. They had walked off the set over safety issues. Obviously, someone got killed. Another person got hit by a bullet. It seemed like a very unsafe environment. In fact, the prosecution wants to use evidence, or they plan to introduce evidence, that he was kind of playing around, I think, and pointing guns at people, just goofing off. And I don't know. I mean, that could prove negligence, but personally, I think it's going to be a high bar to prove. Of course, opening statements are going on today as this video goes live, so I will be all up their ass and talk about those tomorrow probably. But yeah, I think that's about it. I just kind of want to let you guys know the jury's selected, man. The trial's underway, and I will be following it as it heads to its conclusion. So like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys next time. Later.